Please join me in this morning's responsive reading printed in your order of service. As we search for glimpses of truth, as we search for signs of possibility, as we search for heralds of a new era, as we build our world out of shattered illusions of superiority, as we build our world out of inadequate institutions, as we build our world out of unfair sharing of resources, and as we build our world out of chaos, we journey together toward a new era of justice. So welcome this morning to Fountain Street Church. I'm Reverend Elizabeth Barnum. I'm one of the ministers here, and on behalf of my colleagues and the staff, we extend a warm welcome to you this morning to our summer chapel series. If you are with us for the first time, we especially welcome you this morning. You are invited to linger longer next door in the social hall for a time of fellowship, of gathering. Hopefully someone warm and friendly will come up to you and say hello, and you'll have a chance to extend welcome. I think these summer chapel services are such a delight. We get to hear a diversity of voices all summer long. Today, we welcome Tammy Vandenberg. We look forward to hearing you speak. If you take a look inside the bulletin or the order of service here, it gives a little bit of information about her work. She's a humanitarian and community activist who has been working to get people off the streets and into housing for almost 2 decades. She is the executive director of Well House, which I'm assuming we'll hear some about those experiences when she speaks. So please do extend a warm welcome to her, not only during our time of service together, but certainly after worship as well. And we have some guest musicians, Amber and Ryan Kilpatrick. It's great to have you with us again, sharing your gift of voice. And Marilyn, good to have you back as well after some summer vacation. So wonderful. Know that no matter where you find yourself on your journey today, whether that journey is feels deeply spiritual and or deeply outward focused, whatever it might feel like to you this day, whatever questions you may bring with you, whatever stories, whatever emotions, know that they are all welcome here in this space, that this is a time to bring all of that with you and to also kind of start to settle in and sift through so that some moments of peace may arise for you with others in community. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly all your life. Waiting for this moment to rise. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see all your life. You were only waiting for this moment to be free. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly into the light of a dark black night. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly into the light of a dark black night. singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly all your life. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise.
I went down to Houston and I stopped in San Antonio. I passed up the station for the bus, trying to find me something, but I wasn't sure just what. Then I ended up with pockets full of dust. I went on to Cleveland and I ended up insane. Bought a borrowed suit, learned to dance. I was spending money like the way he likes to rain. Then I ended up pockets full of cane. Oh my Carolina, what compels me to go? Oh, my sweet disposition, may you one day carry me home. Ain't never been to Vegas, but I gambled up my life, building newsprint boats, a race to souvenirs, trying to find me something, but I wasn't sure just what. Funny how they say some things never change. My sweet Carolina, what compels me to go? Oh, my sweet disposition, may you one day carry me home. Up here in this city, feels like things are closing in. The sunset's just my light bulb burning out. I miss Kentucky and I miss my family. Oh, the sweetest winds that blow across the south.
That was beautiful. I've done yoga with Amber, but I had no idea she could do this too. So, and Ryan, neighbors. I'm really happy to be here. I'm very honored. I'm a little nervous. I was telling some friends last night, I've done a lot of public speaking, nothing ever termed a sermon before, so I have a little bit of anxiety, but the meditation helped, so I'm feeling good. So thanks for coming. I'm very impressed with the work of the folks at Fountain Street. I was just thinking back to the Art Prize display around justice, and reading in the bulletin about your weekly marital justice rallies, which I've seen, and so I'm happy to be here because I feel like this is a group of people that really walks the walk and really works on justice issues, and lots of old friends here too. So Stephen and Valerie, and anyway, thanks for coming. And Elizabeth already read this passage a couple of times, but I'm just going to read it one more time just to kind of lead into my talk. Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So I was asked to talk about my journey of what brought me to the work that I do now. So I'm going to talk about some truths that I picked up along the way that are my truths that may resonate with you, and then talk about what I'm doing now around justice for people that are homeless and why I do it the way that I do it. Because those of us who have tried to help people know that sometimes the best of intentions can actually aggravate the problem. So it's really, really important to do research, and it's really important to talk to people that know and to include the people that you're trying to help in your discussions so that you can implement justice in the best way possible. So a little bit about me. I grew up in the suburbs, grew up in the church, and never had any females giving sermons, so this is exciting to me, and another thing that I really love about this church. And I was trying to remember sort of the first time I encountered people that were homeless, and I think it was when my youth group went to Guiding Light Mission to sit in on a service, and then we served the food, and was really struck by the people that were there. It was mostly men that were there, and they seemed to be a little bit older, and they just looked so incredibly sad and sick and unhealthy. And I, as a teenager, was that it really hit me to the core, and I was just thinking, why are these people here, and why don't they have anywhere to live, and what are they going to do, and where are they going to go, and who's gonna step in and give them some housing? I mean, we were giving them food and they had a cot to sleep on, but it would just seem like a really tragic situation that sort of stuck with me, and I'm still working on this to this day, and I've learned a lot along the way. So I went to Calvin College, and there I started getting involved in a lot of policy issues and also justice issues, and started looking at all the isms, sexism and racism and all of these things. And I eventually got a job at a state hospital. Well, actually, it was part of Hope Network, but it was folks coming out of Kalamazoo State Hospital. And I just always have felt drawn to our most vulnerable neighbors and people that are sort of left behind, people on the fringes. And so I got that job during Calvin, and then after I graduated, I went down to Louisiana to do an AmeriCorps position. And there I worked at a drop-in center for people that had come out of state hospitals there. And trying to get folks, they were in housing, or most of them were in housing, but they were very, very isolated. They had been in state hospitals for a very long time, and once they were out of the hospitals, they just sort of stayed in their rooms. And so part of my job was to get folks out, get them into the drop-in center, and I was 20-something, and I was just raring to go. And it was a great experience. But I learned very, very quickly, there were folks coming into the drop-in center, and they would immediately just fall asleep. And so, oh, is it the medication? What's going on here? Why are folks coming in here and just falling asleep? And talking with folks, and folks were very private about it, but once we built some trust and some relationships, it turned out they had been walking around all night because they didn't have anywhere to live. So they walked around all night, and then when they could find a place where they felt safe enough, they would sleep. And it started to dawn on me, well, we're trying to get these folks better, we're trying to get them healthier, potentially engaged in the community again, but without housing, it was impossible. It was absolutely impossible. Folks could not focus on anything beyond basic survival and where they were going to sleep and what they were going to eat. And anything beyond that was, forget about it, absolutely impossible. So then they clicked. That's what I was going to do. I was going to work on housing because I really, really wanted to do something that was going to help people be better. And I felt that you could not work on any addiction issues, you could not work on any medical issues, you could not work on any mental health issues, you could not work on employment, you could not work on reconnecting with your family. You could not work on any of those things without a place to live. So I moved back up here and have been working on homelessness issues ever since. My very first job was at Salvation Army Homeless Assistance Program, which was a very, very eye-opening experience. Janae is here. She's got a lot of experience in this. So a couple of things that struck me right away. We served women and women with children primarily. And what struck me immediately was that the vast majority of these women and families were Black or African American. And so I just started looking, well, this seems odd. Started looking at demographic data, and I actually just Googled it last night to kind of double check. But so this is serving all of Kent County, and Kent County demographics are about 10% Black African American, and yet the vast majority of the folks coming in who were homeless were from that community. And so we needed to look at racism. So that was a really big issue that came up in my work very quickly on, and so racial justice is just a giant piece of this work. And immediately I wanted to look at long-term lasting solutions, which included policy solutions, because the other thing I saw, so my job was to get folks into housing, and which involved basically driving folks all around, talking with landlords, talking with jobs, trying to get folks housed. But even if people were working full time, it wasn't enough money to pay rent on a fair market apartment. So here we were driving all over. At that time, the buses only ran till 6. So that was another policy issue that we worked on, is people couldn't even get to second, third shift jobs. And then if they did get the jobs, the funds weren't enough to cover the housing. And another huge issue was folks with felonies, which were a lot of drug possession things and things that many of us have been engaged in as youth. But I found very early on that these laws were very disproportionately applied to certain communities, and then that stuck with these folks forever. And so many were barred permanently from any type of subsidized low-income housing. So what these folks were up against, it was brutal. And then after a while, if women are not able to locate housing, then Child Protective Services comes in. And then if housing is not found by a certain point, children are removed from the home. Talk about trauma, as if, so it's just piling up, and folks are, I was absolutely amazed at how well folks actually dealt with some of this stuff. I think I would have just crumbled. An interesting statistic that has always stuck out to me is that living on the streets long term will take 15 to 25 years off your life expectancy. Yeah, I mean, talk about a wake-up call. This is serious. This is very, very serious. The long-term stress takes its toll on the body. Women, most of the women I've talked to who have lived on the street long-term have been assaulted sexually, and many of the men have also been victims of physical assault. And another striking thing that stuck out to me, which will to you too, but the LGBT youth are, of course, some of the most victimized folks on the street, and 40% of youth that are homeless are from the LGBT community, many of whom cannot live with their parents. Their parents have thrown them out after they've come out. So this is real stuff. This is really important, and I'm very, very happy that our community is working on this in a very serious way, but not serious enough. And so that's why I'm here, volunteering my time to talk about this. And this is why I've been working on this issue for many, many years. So where I am now, so I did take a little bit of break. It's daunting work. I opened up a couple of businesses, but I always kind of had my foot partially in the door. I served on the board of an organization called Well House several years ago, and really, really loved that organization. And I think some of y'all are familiar with Well House. It's been around since the 70s, and it's a very justice-based organization. Lots of food growing, just very, very much meeting immediate needs, but also looking at, what kinds of policies need to be changed so that we don't have to worry about this anymore. Let's solve this once and for all. So in late 2012, Well House needed a director and hired a few folks to do that. And each lasted maybe a month and went away running. And I was asked to step in, and I did. My businesses were going really well, and I decided to see if I could save the organization and keep it going. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the things that I've picked up about people that are homeless, and hopefully help motivate folks to get involved with this issue, whether it's through policy, whether it's through financial contributions, whether it's through giving somebody housing, whether, there are so many different things that folks can do based on, what your interest and availability is. But I have never, ever met in the last 15 years anyone who did not want housing. People have not wanted certain housing that was offered to them. That is true. But it is a colossal myth that people want to be homeless or decide to be homeless. Other folks who may have the stereotype of wanting to be homeless might be folks who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, folks who are veterans, people who have untreated mental health issues. So, but in terms of housing, I have yet to meet somebody when offered dignified, affordable, safe housing that turns it down. I've never seen it. There are many, many, many reasons why people become homeless, but hands down, the biggest one is they don't have enough money to pay for housing. Hands down. As I mentioned, even working full-time, I don't have the exact numbers, but a fair market 2-bedroom is what, $700 or something like that? You throw some kids in there, you can do the math. It's an epic challenge. Certainly, there are people that are homeless who have a variety of other issues, addiction, mental health issues, but so does the general population. So I think we all know people who probably drink too much or have mental health issues, but they are able to maintain housing. So that is another myth that the primary reason for homelessness is people using drugs or alcohol. It certainly does happen. It often becomes a method of self-medicating. Imagine living on the streets long term. What do you do all day? How do you pass the time? And so certainly living on the street exacerbates all of those things. Couple of other things that really, really struck me is children growing up in foster care have just an incredibly high likelihood of becoming homelessness. Because when you think about like, what keeps me from becoming homeless, what keeps you? Often it's our support system, right? You know, we have somebody that can loan us a little bit of money if we're a little short on rent, or we know someone in the community that could potentially give us some part-time work. And so the lack of connections, the lack of family in the area. So these are all huge factors. And then once you are homeless, just getting out of it is incredibly challenging. We interviewed quite a few well house tenants, and I wanted to share a quote that really spoke to me. This is from a gentleman named Shane. And he said, "Well house means a great deal to me. I was out on the street. I was totally hopeless, thinking, where do I go from here? All in one day, I got a place to live and a job and that self-worth of actually doing something instead of feeling like you are walking around in a dark room running into walls." And so I think that it gives a visual of what it's like for people to be on the street long term, hopeless, no self-worth, and yeah, that analogy of just being in a dark room and running into walls is really what people not too far from here right now are living with. But we can solve this. This is a 100% solvable issue, which is the biggest thing I want to get across today. So, Well House uses an evidence-based model. There are evidence-based models that work. I'm not sure if folks know how big the problem of homelessness is here, but it is not a massive number. The HUD count, every year there's a HUD count in January, and this year 793 people were homeless on that one night. So that was folks in the emergency shelters, unhoused, and I'm sure they didn't find everyone, but it's a good sort of benchmark of where we're at. And a couple of interesting numbers about that, 258 of those people were children. And I think that's another thing that people don't really realize. We think of a homeless person and we see a white guy with a long beard, with a pint, and actually a large chunk of people that are homeless are kids. 431 of these folks, well over half, were from the Black and African American community. In order to start solving some of these issues, we have to take on really tough discussions about race. It has to be done. It has to be a part of the conversation. We need to talk about racial equity, racial justice. I don't know if y'all have initiatives around that, but it has to be a part of that conversation because that makes no sense whatsoever. It is just outlandish in this day and age. So once I started my most recent stint at Well House, we're located on the near southeast side, and there are a lot of vacant houses in that neighborhood and a lot of boarded up homes. And I thought, I had seen some little meme on some social media that said there were 6 homes for every one person who's homeless in the country. And I thought, I wonder what the numbers are in Kent County. And so I just, Googled and searched around. And according to the 2010 census, there were 19,000 vacant housing units in Kent County. And we're talking about 793 people that were homeless. So we need to think about what kind of a community arranges itself in such a way. Why would we have 19 vacant units? Now, these are everything from, your luxury apartment to your dilapidated house in the Well House neighborhood and everything in between. But that just struck me as, why have we not figured this out? And I don't know why, but I'm ready. I'm ready to come up with some solutions. We have the housing, we have the people, we have the money. People will tell you we don't have the money. The money's there. We have enough resources in our community to take care of this issue. So I just want to challenge everyone here to help out, to see what you can do to help solve this issue. We can do it. We're Beer City. We have one of the largest art competitions in the world, and we have a multi-million-dollar downtown market, and so many other wonderful things. But how about we become the city that ended homelessness, you know? Because we can do it. We have the houses, and we have the resources, and we know how to do it. The research is there, so it can be done. And I'm not a person who's like, let's give everybody a handout. That is not me. My philosophy is like, let's just get everybody working from a level playing field. You know, let's create the conditions so that people can just change their own lives, because they will. They really will. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. So if you can get the conditions in place, people will thrive. So I'm just going to end with a couple of quotes. This isn't easy work, and I don't want to make it sound like this is going to be real easy and fast, but it is worth doing, and it can be done. And when I get discouraged, I often I look to Howard Zinn. He's a hero of mine. So just wanted to read this quote. "To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending the spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act, in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite successions of presents, and to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory." So that's from Howard Zinn. And then, because this is a religious community, I stole this from Cory Booker, who I saw last week, and he had this great quote. And it's from Frederick Douglass, and it says, "I prayed for 20 years to not be a slave, but received no answer until I prayed with my legs." So, thank you very much.